Carl and Lou here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial.com for short. And it is Freddy's Nightmares, up to episode number 8 of season 1. It is Mother's Day, written by David Ehrman and directed by Michael Lang. This was an interesting combination. The first part I really enjoyed. I really got into and I really liked the ending. The second part I wanted to like, but my God, is it such a confusing storytelling aspect they do, with an ending that just kind of falls flat. And how the two tie in together isn't done very well. It's not an overarching story really, it's just based around one particular character. So overall, I'm not too sure I would call this a good episode. There are things I like about it. There are things that feel Nightmare on Elm Street like. But it's certainly far removed from the previous episode, Sister's Keeper, which is so obviously Freddy Krueger related. In fact, he has nothing to do with this aside from his usual intro, outro and stuff like that. And I mean, as you know, it's all about a pun, and a lot of them are hit and miss, and to be honest, most of them are misses. And these episodes have them as well. The characters, the stars in this, it's really only 3 that I'm highlighting. It's 2 from the first part, which is Billy, the character of Billy played by Byron Thomas, and the character of Barbara Gamble, played by Jill Whitlow. They're the 2 major players of the first. Technically, Barbara is a player in the second part, but the major character in that one is Sherry Gamble, her mother, played by Elizabeth Savage. What did you think? I said what I thought of these 2 segments. What did you think?
I enjoyed the first one.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
The first one was good. It had some sort of good visuals on it. And then the second one, there's too much of the idea was good, but used too much. You know, the whole.
It was jumping a lot,
back and forth. I really like the idea of it. The second half.
Yeah. It's a cool concept. The issue with the jumping was because it's like you end up going and with this show and this episode, you're constantly trying to second guess yourself about what's a dream and what's not. And the amount of jumping the second part does, you're like, this can't be a dream. This is quite extreme and stuff like that. So that becomes a problem.
Yeah, and because I think the things that happen are not beyond the realms of what could happen.
Of course.
So it's like, we need some more visual cue to guide us a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I could see, I know a major frustration in this show is that people kind of get annoyed with the fact that it often doesn't make sense because what's dream, what's real, and so on. I don't have a big issue with that. I'm happy enough to just play along with the game the show is, and sometimes when it leaves it ambiguous as well. I think that's kind of cool. But this is one that maybe could have done with a bit tighter storytelling, but a limited with time. We've said this about previous episodes, you know, you can see sometimes there's effort being put in, there's good storytelling, and it could result in a longer experience. And this, I don't think this episode is one of them, because the 2 stories are so unrelated. We'll get into the first one now, and it's basically Billy is a teenager, and he's one of those teenagers where it's like he's playing a character that is way younger than he is. It really is. And we don't mean by the fact he looks old and he's supposed to be playing a 16, 17-year-old, whatever. He also kind of acts like he's about 13 or 14, particularly in regards to his mum and things that. But he looks like he's early 20s, that kind of thing. And basically his mum's just remarried.
Yeah.
He's just remarried and are moving into the new fella stepfather's house. It was Al, wasn't it? Yeah. Al. And we kind of immediately see that Al is a bit of a stern figure who kind of sees Billy as an inconvenience more than anything else. You know, he loves the woman. She comes with a son. What are you going to do? But we also see that Billy and his mother have a pretty good relationship. There was a couple of times, there are a little bit, not that they're too close or whatever like that, but she speaks and talks to him like he's a lot younger. He speaks to her like he's younger. And I actually think that might have been on purpose to give us the impression that they relied on each other only, so that's why they're like that.
I think as he looks older as well, I think it does look a bit more, I know, they're not that
weird.
Yeah. If he was younger, you'll be, okay, that's just your teenage son. But because he does look mid-20s, it does seem a bit more like...
You're when they're sitting really close to each other, or he's touching her hand, or she's touching his arm, or something like that, you know. After initially moving in, because that's it, the first part is where they're sort of just moving in, really. They haven't even fully unpacked, and then they're like, we're going on our honeymoon now.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right.
Yeah, this isn't a film, is it? We've got to go.
Yeah. Because like there's boxes everywhere and all that. We're going on our honeymoon now, and Billy is kind of giving instructions by Al. Kind of like way Al acts is he doesn't say anything outright threatening or mean, but he kind of gets up close to Billy and he says certain things. Basically, don't damage the place, don't touch my shit, that kind of thing, And we see that Al has got shit basically. Guns,
records,
wine records, stuff like that. He's a bachelor. He was a bachelor once before, and that's why it's kind of like that as well. So they bugger off they go on a honeymoon. We also learn here, actually, we should point out, because it's important to the ending, that Al has a weak heart. Yeah. It's kind of just dropped in, enough that you dismiss it, and it is paid off wonderfully at the end. So I will give him credit for that, but it's just kind of dropped off. And he is a man probably in his mid-40s, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's very believable. Yeah, absolutely. Billy's neighbour, Barbara, comes over. And, obviously, he has googly eyes for her. Yeah. She's an attractive enough girl.
Yeah, young girl.
Yeah, that kind of thing, tight clothes, that kind of thing. And she's flirty as well, wandering around, sort of touching stuff, flirting with him and things like that. She's got a real habit of just touching everything in the house, whatever it is.
Can you not?
And basically, But she seems to have an ulterior goal, because she talks about her mother being absent and being married several times and lots of boyfriends and things like that. That I'm going to bring back up in the second part as being what that is irrelevant. She has lots of boyfriends, or whatever man in the morning was sitting at breakfast. Those lines irrelevant to the second part, completely irrelevant. The absentee part totally makes sense as it ties in, but the men every morning is not an important aspect of the entire episode.
No, but it does add to the absenteeism. She's busy with boyfriends, not a daughter.
Well, you can say that, but at least she's home. Even if she's getting ploughed, do you know what I mean? She's, that kind of thing.
Yeah, focus is elsewhere.
But basically, apparently Barbara's been told she can't have a pie for whatever reason. She wants to have a pie with her friends. And basically, she's trying to get Billy to agree to have one at his. We kind of clocked that as well. We kind of clocked Barbara's motivations here. It's not exactly hidden very well. And that's like, so we learn about the relationship with the mother. During all this, Billy sort of just gets tired. Kind of just, all right, I can understand him being tired from moving in, but there's a stranger in his house and it's a hot girl and he's talking to her and he's just like, I'll sit down on the couch, or lie down on the couch,
and sleep.
And then apparently falls asleep. And you're like, okay. And as you say, it's got to get there. Yeah. We've got to get to places. But then it's weird because you kind of expect, all right, this is where the dream part comes, but it doesn't really work like that to do a degree. Because he wakes up on the couch again. And basically, he's hearing that Barbara's kind of like they figure he's not going to agree to the party, and he intervenes and says, "Look, let's have the party," and so on. And we immediately cut to like a motley crew of young adults. I'm going to say young adults, not teenagers, turning up, and they are a raucous bunch to say the least. They kind of bully Billy a bit. In this, Barbara reveals that she's got a boyfriend, but again, that's weird because in a bit she'll do something that suggests she doesn't. But she goes to this guy and they're immediately like necking on, basically. And they just start to cause a bit of trouble. They're rowdy and noisy, and it's a group walking in. Basically, you might as well have a boombox on the shoulder, and it's like, hey, guy, where's the beer? And stuff like that. Well, that comes afterwards, because Billy starts to get a bit stressed. He's telling him about such stuff and all that, and Barbara, seeing he's stressed, says, look, come show me your room. Takes her to the room, flirts with him a bit in there, bends over while looking for a telescope that is conveniently pointed at her house. Don't be weird, Billy.
Creepy,
do you know what I mean? Like that stuff. Because here's the thing. Billy's really likeable. And so's Barbara to a degree. They're both well acted and they're likeable.
Then we realise in this part, this is the dream part, isn't it?
Well,
so she's not.
Well, we don't know this yet. That's the thing, is it's revealed at the end, But
this
is a dream section.
You said the part about Barbara does something that she hasn't got a boyfriend.
Of course, this is what Billy. Yeah, this is where it gets confusing. This is where you kind of get tied up in it. Because of course, in Billy's fantasy,
in the nightmare.
Yeah.
In the nightmare, everything he doesn't want to happen happens. So the girl that he's flirting with has got a boyfriend. Yep. He's a dick. His mates are dickheads, and the place gets trashed.
Of course.
So that's.
Absolutely. Yeah. On reflection, it all makes sense like that. At first, you're kind of just watching, and you kind of know, it could be a dream. But because you never know with this episode or this show overall what's real and what's not, and when the dream starts and when the dream ends, that's what it is. Because, with him waking back up on the couch, there was no indication beyond what we know about the show so far that he was awake or dreaming. So after that, he goes back downstairs because he hears a loads of noise, and he finds the party's got a little out of control. They are smashing records, just smashing the shit out of them, and now they've got guns. And they're just shooting holes and stuff. It's quite a bit extreme. That's where you kind of realise, this has to be a dream, right? Because they're using guns now. This is too much. And Billy does manage to get them all leave. He kind of just screams and shouts, and they're just like, all right, then we'll leave.
Did he threaten him with a gun?
Yeah, he does threaten him with a gun as well. There is that too, so just get a bit of a hand. And right then, his stepfather arrives back home, races back in the car, and comes in. Furious, seeing the place, he obviously attacks Billy and ends up scuffling. And during that, Billy knocks his stepfather, Al, over the couch, and Al dies. And he dies via bear trap to the head. You might be thinking, huh? It is kind of set up earlier on when they're unpacking boxes, and Al's a hunter. That's why he's got the guns and all of that, and he has a bear trap. How that bear trap was, I mean, because it's a nightmare, it was activated to do that, but I guess it makes sense in that sense. So yeah, Al gets killed in this moment. His mother now arrives, Billy's mother, and obviously Billy's like, oh my god, it was an accident, I didn't mean to do it, and stuff like that. But she then reveals that she's not actually upset, that this was perfect for them.
It's his house.
It's not.
It's their house now.
Yeah, basically they're going to get the house. That's all she wanted, was for her and Billy to live there in their own home. So yeah, there you go. That's that.
That's the first one.
Yeah, no, it's not.
The first part.
It's not.
Oh no, it's not.
You've got no. You have not, because then he wakes up and rightfully is a bit freaked out. Seeing Barbara there, he's waking up at the same point, undoing everything where he agreed to the party. He reacts badly now to Barbara, kind of upsets her a little bit, but she ends up taking him to his bedroom and kind of cares for him, kind of helps him out. Says, "Look, you're stressed, you're tired, you're exhausted, you've done this. Come upstairs, I'll sort you out." However, up there he begins to hallucinate that she's trying to kill him with the bear trap. And he ends up backing out of the window and falling to his death. He lands, and it's so well done, right in front of his mother and stepfather, who have just driven back. They came back because they'd forgotten Al's heart pills. So obviously came racing back, probably worried about the flight and that kind of thing. As Billy dies, his mother cries and all over, and then looks back to the car to see the shock of that entire event killed Al. Yeah. He's had a heart attack. We were both like, that was a great ending. That was a great ending. He kind of gets a nice shot as well of Barbara sort of standing. When bear in mind, of course, Billy's mother doesn't know who she is, so it's not a good look or anything like that. And that's kind of how we roll into the second one, because the next part surrounds Sherry, and she is the mother of Barbara, Sherry Gamble. And basically, she is a very sharp and cutting radio psychologist who I think, and claimed all through it, is terrible at her job, but would make for good entertaining. Basically, you call her the problem, she calls you a pussy, a piece of shit, gives you terrible advice, and it's that kind of thing. It's whatever variation you've got, it's our Jeremy Kyle, but you know, I mean, stuff like that. She's that variation. Just not very nice at all. Barbara has been arrested. I thought it was a cool touch that they, you know, because rightfully, until they conclude what went on, Barbara would be suspicious. He fell out the window. It's not a good look. And she can't get her mother's attention, so she ends up calling up as a caller that Sherry will dub Weepy Wendy, because she doesn't apparently recognise her daughter's voice, or the major hints when she talks about her own mother to her mother. It's really poorly done, because I don't care how absent you are, you're going to recognise your daughter's voice. That's absurd. And it's through that conversation that we see Sherry is oblivious to her daughter's problems as well. And during so basically we spend time with Sherry just getting calls. It's not very interesting. Elizabeth Savage
she's very good.
Is very good. Probably too good for this.
Yeah.
But it's just her sitting with her producer and taking calls. And the only one that really matters to this is the man who's threatening to kill his landlord. So she takes a call from a man who's got his landlord hammering on the door, demanding his rent. And this man's basically like, I'm going to kill him. I want to kill him. What should I do? Sherry, not taking it seriously, basically gives him terrible advice.
Just go.
Go. She doesn't believe it's real.
Yeah.
So she says, just go with it, basically. Yeah. And the guy ends up killing. And she is shocked by that and stuff like that. And it kind of gets her taken off the air briefly to take a break. And that's where we have the whole maybe she falls asleep thing. Well, she does fall asleep as she's taking a break. And then we go for a very fast litany. So much, so quick that it's almost, we're not going to recap it bit by bit. But it's all very dreamlike. She's basically implicated in the murder, turned into a villain by everyone, a pariah, hated by everyone, tormented by the mother of the man who killed the landlord. Yeah. Although it's weird, when she takes that call, the voice keeps changing to a man's voice. I don't think that's very well explained into what that is. Her own daughter as well, and even the police. You know, we see her being arrested, we see her in court, all of this, but it's done quickly, but it's also so dragged out at times that it doesn't make a lot of sense, and you can't work out what's real. You know, she's in a police cell. talking to her lawyer, and she's like got a phone in there, and the phone's ringing. It's the mother of the. So, I mean, it's all very, very confusing. It's very cut heavy, and the problem is, unlike the first part, it just doesn't hold the attention.
No.
And it kind of has us. We laughed. We was like, oh, it's got a bit of a happy ending, and she kind of realised that she's been neglecting her daughter and stuff like that. It's like, okay, that's unusual. It's unusual. It's different, I suppose.
Yeah, you keep expecting death and destruction the whole way through.
That's how it should be. It's Freddy Krueger. It's Freddy's nightmares. It's what it should literally be. But ultimately, the second part is what lets this overall episode down for me. I enjoyed the first one. I remember it strongly. The second one, I needed a few more prompts when I was writing my notes. I was like, oh, what happens here? And I was like, okay, thinking back. So I ended up scrubbing back through the episode to sort of see like, all right, and that's not good considering at the time recording. We only watched the episode a few days ago. Yeah. The first one were quite vibrant in my head. Second part, not so much.
Gone.
So yeah, that's a problem I think for the overall episode more than anything else. On the whole, I think you can watch the first part and not watch the second and not lose anything because they're not tied well together at all. It's really the only link is Barbara.
Yeah.
And even then, she's a minor player in the second story and a minor player in the first to be a certain degree. So watch the first part, be entertained by that as it's quite a complete story because it even ends so gleefully dark that it's a nice complete story. And that's all you need to do for that one. That is episode 8, Mother's Day. Got any thoughts there? You know what to do. Let us know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?